everyone. Nice to see you. Nice to be together. It's hard to believe it's been a week since our last Erev Shabbat together, but here we are. Time marches on. We are marching on through the period of the Omer, counting our days. Counting our days from liberation to revelation, from Pesach to Shavuot. And in this weird time that we are all inhabiting right now, we're very aware of counting time and marking time, or of the different nature of time, as we don't know an end point for this way of life that we are now in. And I think the days flow into one another. So as I've said before, I'm very grateful that we can have this Shabbat space, this cathedral in time, as Heschel put it, to be together, to help us remember what day it is and to notice the passing of time, along with the counting of our Omer. So I'm seeing a message, Denise, I see your message that this is not streaming on public access. I'm not sure why that is. Rabbi Schaefer has been in touch with them, so hopefully they will get it up and running, because I know some folks are tuning in from there. So Shabbat Shalom, as everybody's joining us at Temple Ohabei Shalom. We are such a warm and loving community, and one of the things I love is that people are so just affectionate, and we hug each other, and we put our arms around each other. And I really miss that, and I wish we could do that. So I hope that we can approximate our hugs and our close physical proximity by being welcoming of one another as we join together. So feel free to greet your friends that you see on here, greet anybody else. Just say a general word of welcome to everybody else. And I'll give just a moment for folks to continue to join us. Great, Denise says that we are on TV. So welcome to those who are joining us on the Brookline TV channel. I'm really glad we're able to stream this service to you tonight. And welcome to my home, which on Friday nights and Saturday mornings turns into Temple Ohabei Shalom, the Newton Auburndale branch. So welcome to our spiritual community, virtual as it may be this evening. I think we're going to start with, I'm very lucky to have a musical family that you might be able to see behind me. So I think we're going to start with just a little bit of instrumental. And while you're listening to the music, I invite you to begin to take those nice deep breaths to enter into sacred time. We bring in Shabbat a little bit early. It's our custom. We begin services at 6 o'clock year-round. And so it's not nightfall yet, but I think we could all use sort of an early entry into Shabbat time. So let's move into Shabbat time. And as you hear the instrumental music, just really get situated, get comfortable, and take those deep breaths and notice where you're holding tension in your body, in your soul, in your mind. For now, we're unplugging except from the devices that we're using to broadcast this and to watch it. But other than that, we're unplugging. We're unplugging from the news whirling around us. We're unplugging from the sadness, from the horror, from the anxiety. We're here together to have what I like to call some soul food, some spiritual nourishment. And we may find that in these melodies. We may find that in these ancient words that have been sung for millennia. Some of them have been around for millennia. We are going to go through the arc of a service, our Kabbalat Shabbat service that was put together in the Middle Ages. We're connecting with those who came before us, really to strengthen us in this moment for where we are now. We need to really embrace our ancestors, all they experienced, the ways that they expressed their grief, their fear, their hope, their joy. And our liturgy and our melodies give us a chance, I hope, to really connect to those ancestors, to remember that human beings of every generation have experienced great challenge, and this is our challenge. So thank God we're able to come together in community. Thank God we live in a time where this technology exists and we can be together even in a virtual way. I'm going to see if I can unmirror my screen. No, that's not going to work. Someone pointed out to me that we are mirrored in the broadcast. So when you see me flipping the pages of the book, it looks like I'm flipping them from left to right, like English, but our prayer book actually goes right to left. So speaking of our prayer book, of course you're welcome to be here with us without a book. Some of you have a book in your homes, and some of you may want to access the prayer book that you can find online at ccarpress.org, or just go to the homepage of our Ohabei website, ohabei.org, and that will direct you to the digital version of our Shabbat prayer book. Please bring your voice and your full self into this virtual space. Though we can't see each other or hear each other in this format, I really believe that the energy that is created and the invisible bonds of energetic connection that exist between us are very much present, and that together those bonds of connection do transcend all of us. So Rabbi Jethro Berkman and our kids, two of our three kids, Ami Berkman and Idan Berkman, are joining us on their respective instruments for this instrumental. Just take another little bit of time to settle in and take some deep breaths. We're going to begin welcoming the angels, the messengers of peace, with Shalom Aleichem, and in the book that's found on page 24. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Asharit, Malachei Elyon. I felt really moved today to actually sing something we don't usually sing at the beginning of services, but it's the song Eli, Eli, based on the poem by the renowned, remarkable woman Hannah Senesh. And as we're about to mark Holocaust Remembrance Day this coming Monday night, and Hannah Senesh was murdered in the Shoah, I would very much like to just sing as we continue to gather together, Eli, Eli. And if you're in the prayer book, it's on page 349. And I'll sing it once in Hebrew and once in English. Eli, Eli. actually, to be unfair, I sprung that on them, and Rabbi Jethro Berkman did beautifully improvising. So we're going to light candles now, and please feel free to light along with us or to wait until we're a little bit more towards nightfall, as is your custom. The candle lighting blessings are on page 2. As I light the candles and as we then bring that light towards ourselves, I invite you to bring in 3 things into yourself, 3 things that you need to sustain your soul this Shabbat, that you hope will come to you in the form of blessing this Shabbat, and that you can then move outward into the world of work and daily life and just pay that forward and bring that outward. Shalom, everyone. We'll turn now to Psalm 96, one of the Psalms that express our awe and our wonder for the gifts of nature. I know that this past week, was it this week? I think it was. We had that incredible windstorm. And a lot of these Psalms have that kind of imagery of just being in awe of the power of nature. And I think that that can give us, in a way, some relief when we realize that nature transcends us. We don't control it, and sometimes things happen for better and for worse, for blessing and for curse that are part of the natural world, and we did not bring those to be, and that can help connect us to a transcendent source. So we're going to sing, if you're following along, we're on page 13, for a bit of Psalm 96. Musical energy here. I hope it came through. I'm very proud of Idan. He's 6 years old and he's just begun really learning chords, though he's been been strumming a guitar basically since he was born. So we are going to move now into Lecha Dodi. We're going to do what we've done a couple times now and sing Lecha Dodi on page 20 and 21, verses 1, 2, and 5, and 9. We're going to sing it to the tune of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah. So you can hum along. You don't need to sing the words. Whatever is meaningful to you. In this beautiful poem song, we are welcoming Shabbat. We are welcoming a sacred pause. We are not meant to just go and think and do continuously. So we are so joyful to be reunited with this bride, with this Shabbat, and we'll rise and face the door to symbolically welcome her when we come to verse 9. If you're following along, we're in pages 20 and 21.
Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki mekor ha'beracha merosh mikedem nesucha sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila lecha dodi likrat kala
Verse 5.
Hit oreri, kiva orech kumi ori, shirda beiri. Kevod Adonai alayich nigla, kevod Adonai alayich nigla, lecha dodi likrat kala. Lecha dodi likrat kala. Hene Shabbat neka mela.
Please rise if you're able and face the door to your home to welcome the Shabbat bride.
Ohabei Shalom Shabbat.
feel a sense of wow, a sense of wonder for the musicality of my family. And I'm so grateful that some of them have joined me this evening. We're going to turn to our wow psalm. It is an excerpt from Psalm 92, and one of the parts of that round is really easy. It's just the word hallelujah. And the other part is Magalu ma'asechaya. How amazing is your creation, source of all life. Me'od amku b'machshavotecha. Very, very deep are your thoughts. We realize how small we are, how little we do understand. When we make ourselves small, we can also that way come into our own power and importance as human beings here to partner with God to heal this world. We start like this. Hallelujah, 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 Feel free to type in anything that brought you awe during this past week. I will share that I was feeling really sick this week, and thankfully I did not have COVID-19. I was tested because I was feeling pretty terrible, and I feel so much better now. And just the fact that the human body can heal itself in the way that thankfully mine did is truly something I am really awed by. So feel free to keep those comments about awe coming. And we'll transition now from the Kabbalat Shabbat service, the receiving of Shabbat, into the Ma'ariv service with Chatzi Kaddish on page 26. Yitkadal ve'yitkadash shemei Rabbah V'alma divrach irutei, v'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon, u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, b'gala, u'v'zman koriv, v'yimeru, amen, yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach, le'al Mulan me'an maya, yitbarach, ve'yishabach, yitpa'ar, v'yitramam, ve'yitnasei, ve'yitadar, ve'yitaleh, ve'yitalal, shemed koresha b'richu, le'ila min kol birchata, v'shirata, tushbechata, v'nechemata, dam yiran bi'alma, vayimeru, amen. If you are able to rise with your body, please do that, or just rise in spirit for the Baruch Hu, the call to worship. We recite before we recite Shema. So in the book it's on page 28.
Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
I'm going to read an English reading on the top of page 29 in our prayer book. There is one who sings the song of his own life, finding everything within himself. There is one who leaves the circle of herself and sings the song of her people. There is one whose voice rings with the song of humanity, hoping for the highest perfection. And there is one who rises even higher, uniting with all creatures and with all worlds, filling the universe with song. On page 30, we say, "Blessed are you who speaks the evening into being, who alters the time and changes the seasons, arranges the stars, rolls light away from darkness and darkness from light." Again, the theme of awe at the cycles of the natural world that we feel so powerfully as the flowers are blooming, even though we're going to get some snow tonight. That too is mysterious and awe-inspiring.
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב ערבים.
Turn to Ahavat Olam, in which we say, "Everlasting love you offered the people Israel by giving us your wisdom, your Torah, guiding us in how to live in this world, teaching us our responsibility so that we know being free is not for its own sake, but for the sake of being God's partner in this world and building a world of chesed, compassion, and tzedek, justice."
אהבת עולם בית ישראל, עמך אהבת. תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו, בשוכבנו ובקומנו, נשיח בחוקך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ואורך ימינו, ובהם נהגה יומם ולילה, יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסתיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שכבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד.
If you haven't been seated already after the Baruch Hu, you can be seated now and we'll chant the Ahavta, page 36 in the book.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך בצאתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. We turn to Micha Mocha, page 40. Now we've crossed that sea. We're marching through the wilderness, figuring out how to live as one people, emerging as a people. We're in our infancy as a people. We haven't even gotten the Torah yet. Here we remember our great song of gratitude. Now we turn to Hashkivenu. It's on page 42. There are two parts to this blessing. The first part in which we ask that we lie down in peace and that we rise up tomorrow to a new day. And a second part that says, God, may you spread over us a shelter, a canopy of your peace. Again, I always tell you that I think of it like a talit, like a big divine embrace, but a divine embrace just simply made up of the love and connection that we have with other people. We really do create that Shabbat Shalom, that canopy of peace for one another. And this blessing, in addition to being a prayer, a hope is also a reminder of what our responsibility is to one another, particularly during a scary time. And this blessing emerged because nighttime was a scary time for our ancestors. So we'll sing Hashkivenu, and we'll also we'll mash it up with a little Bob Marley, Everything's Gonna Be All Right. Somebody shared with me that that really felt comforting to them. So we're gonna do that version. I'm so glad, and I hope it brings you comfort. And then we're going to sing the third line down on the page, which is Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha, which simply means spread over us the sukkah, the canopy of your peace, God.
John's going to start us off.
All right.
Adonai
Shabbat, we'll be able to bring that outward. And you may have noticed that a third Berkman brother has joined the mix, so I will introduce you to Gavi Berkman. He is 14 years old, believe it or not. I sure don't believe it. And we are going to sing Vishamru and remind ourselves of the verses in Torah that remind us of why we should observe this sacred pause. And Vishamru is on page 44. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam yainai beini uvein bnei Yisrael otilei olam ki shishet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz uvayom hashevi'i Shabbat vayinafash. We turn now to the Amidah, the standing prayer. Stand if you're able to. And we begin with a prayer that we be able to pray. And then I'll chant through the first three blessings and then give us a quiet, private moment for our own prayer using the prayer book or the words that we hold within us tonight and need to express. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imachot, U'mevi גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם, בעזרת שרה, אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הצל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל מרחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, קדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. We take a moment while Jethro plays his original composition. Please pray on your own. Shalom Rav, page 60. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Ki ata hu melech hador lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech hador lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. So we are counting the Omer, and I'm proud to say that I've remembered every night so far. That may be unprecedented, to do the mitzvah of Sfirat HaOmer, of counting the Omer, and we've entered the second week of the Omer. We are now, as it is technically evening, as we welcomed in Shabbat, we're welcoming in the day that comes after the 8th day. Now, why isn't she just saying what the actual word is, the actual number? Well, that is because you are, and I only learned this pretty recently, you're not supposed to say the number itself until you're actually counting the number, so that counting the number really counts. So, sorry that I don't actually have the page number if you're following along in the book, but if it is your practice to count or you'd just like to try it, I will guide you through. So we'll first say the blessing, blessed are you who has commanded us to count the Omer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Hayom tisha'a yamim shehem shavua echad u'shnei yamim la'omer. That means today is 9 days that are 1 week and 2 days of the Omer. Slowly but surely we will reach Sinai. We will receive the wisdom we each need to hear according to our capacity to hear it, and we will bring that wisdom into the world in how we live. So, at this time, we are going to sing Amisha Berach for those who are in need of healing of body or spirit. I know that is a very, very large number of people. And whether you have people in your personal orbit, your families, your friends, or your acquaintances who are suffering illness from the coronavirus or from any other cause, I invite you to hold those people in your hearts during this blessing. And if you would like to type in the names of those for whom you are praying for healing, I'll have you do that now while there's some instrumental music in the background.
those connected to our community. We remember Jeff Hermes, Linda Hoffman, Susan Lieberman, Harvey Solomon, Tamara Levine, Francis Sternick. And I'm praying for Zach Skelding and for my friend Leslie. C. Rodney, Heidi, Julia, Anna, David Oppenheim, and all those who are in need of healing. So much healing. Let's send them all of the healing energy we can muster. While we sing Misha Berach, it's on page 253 in the book. Some words of Torah to share with you tonight. Thank you so much to my musicians. They need me back for as we conclude the service, but I'm really proud of them. They've been practicing and making music a lot during the week. I feel like I want to get closer to you. That's why I keep coming over to the screen. So we're in one of the more difficult Torah portions that we have. We're in one of the most, of course, the most, I think, difficult book for us to wrap our heads around, and that's the book of Leviticus. Vayikra, it's full of laws and regulations relating to something we don't do anymore, to the ancient sacrificial cult and the system of worship by animal sacrifice, and lots of other laws related to the priests and this holy place. But at this point in Torah, this holy place, which is supposed to serve as a reminder that the presence of the divine will be with the Israelites as they traverse the wilderness. It's not meant to be the place where God is exclusively. We know that God can be held by no place. But the Israelites need to know. Remember, they're still in their infancy, as I said before, developing as a people. They're just at the beginning of their freedom, the very beginning. And so they're instructed to build this tabernacle, this Ohel Moed. And there are many laws related to the building of that tabernacle. And in this parasha, which is called Shmini, it's so named because it's on the 8th day that this takes place. The 8th day of what? It's the 8th day of this long inaugural ceremony by which they'll get the Ohel Moed, the tabernacle, this holy space that will travel with them. They're getting it ready. And in this parsha as well, the priests, Aaron and his sons, are anointed
and are ordained also as priests. So again, there's a lot of laws, a lot of regulations, and a lot of boundaries here. This isn't a place for the kind of unbridled joy of the song at the sea that we sing part of with Mi Chamocha, right? Where the Israelites were so filled with gratitude that it just spilled over into song. This isn't the time for that. This is a very different time where the importance of having boundaries and having rules is really set forth. And the people, when they crossed the sea, not too long ago, if we remember that we are living that history again and again, it didn't just happen once long ago to those people, but we relive this, we reenact it with Passover. And so where we are now is, excuse me, you done? Where we are now is they were a mixed multitude when they crossed the sea. They were called a mixed multitude. And now they're at this new stage of development, becoming a people. So boundaries. This got me thinking a lot about boundaries in our tradition. And there is a lot around boundaries in time. So rather than building grand cathedrals, although arguably, of course, Ohabei Shalom is quite grand. We have our dome, which is beautiful. But historically speaking, for the most part, we have not built large, elaborate cathedrals. But Shabbat, as Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel said, is our cathedral in time. Our holy days are our palaces in time. And time is, we mark time. Not only do we count the Omer, as we just did, but we move each week in a cycle from weekday, from Chol, and in between the first days and last days of Pesach, we call it Chol HaMoed. We move from Chol time to Kodesh time, time that is Kadosh, is holy. So there is a lot that is important about boundaries in time, and actually when we make Havdalah, when we escort Shabbat time out the same way we brought it in, we bring it in with candles and with a braided loaf of bread, a challah, and we bring it out with a braided candle, a Havdalah candle, and also wine and spices. So when we bring in Havdalah, and Havdalah itself means distinction, demarcation, division. And we say, blessed are you, Hamavdil ben Kodesh lechol, the one who divides from holy and regular time. So, boundaries. I read a beautiful teaching by my colleague Rabbi Adina Allen, who is the director of an arts organization, the Jewish Studio Project, which brings Jewish text and learning and Jewish and art, visual art together, and she does amazing work in San Francisco. And I read a beautiful teaching that she wrote this week. And she talked about boundaries, and she talked about the blurring of boundaries. In this time in which we're living, a lot of the regular boundaries of our lives are blurred. I'm standing here in my living room. You're all here virtually with me. My child just walked in and was bugging me. The boundaries of the personal and the professional are very blurred. And she actually wrote about that as a rabbi. And that's one boundary that's getting blurred, right? The boundaries of time, we all joke about how we don't really know what day it is anymore. The other day I had the thought, wow, it must be really getting to be almost April. And then I realized we were midway through April. So there's a lot of blurring, but we know that our tradition so values boundaries. So I just want to remind you that in the book of Genesis, built into the very fabric of creation, we have so much about boundaries. The way that God is creating the world is through demarcation and boundaries. In the words of a contemporary Israeli rabbi named Gabriel Lasker, a prevalent theme in the biblical creation account is that God's dividing up and separating of his creations, through which each acquires specific form and boundaries. God separates the light from the darkness, the lower waters from the upper waters, and the dry from the waters in the lower spheres, the dry land from the waters. He then causes vegetation to sprout forth from the land, and the verse says, according to its kind. There's a lot of each thing has a purpose, a boundary, a place. And the very act of dividing and creating boundaries is inherent in the work of creation. So here in Torah, in the book of Leviticus, with the creation of this holy space and this system of sacrifice, the root word in Hebrew for sacrifice is the same as closeness. Karov is close and korban is sacrifice. So at this time, all of these laws have to do with boundaries and recognizing them and honoring them actually as a way of feeling close. And you don't have that divide anymore. And Rashi explains that the word for flood, which in Hebrew is mabul, is a variation of the term balal, which means mixture or confusion. And in fact, the contemporary modern Hebrew word for confusion is also from that same root. So the land and the water were mixed. So what about the boundaries now when we can't stick to the boundaries that we always had? That's yet another thing that has been lost. So much about our internal landscape might feel disoriented because the external landscape, including the ways that we mark time, the time we get up in the morning might have changed. And the time we spend commuting is gone as we're working from home, those of us who are. There are so many things that are blurred now. And Rabbi Allen, who I quoted before, she talks about what might be the blessing of that time. And one of those things she talks about is the way that perhaps we're more authentic with each other. So, and we're just, maybe it's more Hamish, right? To use the word for sort of warm and inviting. I mean, I've invited you into my home for the past several weeks on Friday night. I have loved doing that. I feel sad to be physically distanced from all of you, but actually so delighted to be close with you in this way. We are able to be close with those we can't be physically close with because of geography in ways that we wouldn't really have necessarily thought of just a few weeks ago. Last night, I was honored to officiate at a Zoom Shiva gathering, and it was the first one that I had done and led a service in, and we had people from all over the country and world coming together to share stories of their beloved who had died. And that is a mixing of boundaries. Everyone was from their bed, their couch, their kitchen table, and the funeral was not as funerals generally are. So much is mixed and so much is different. But I really urge us to find the blessing in that. And when we go back to being able to have more of our typical boundaries, I actually believe that they won't be what they once were. That maybe it's up to us to create some healthier boundaries, some boundaries that enable us to balance our lives a little better. And now that some of us have been able to maybe get outside more, experience the natural world, maybe we're going to set our boundaries around when we are sitting at our desks and when we're outside being in and noticing nature. Maybe we're going to set those boundaries a little bit differently. So I urge you to find the blessing in this time of the blurring of boundaries. And I also hope that we can be mindful of the ways that boundaries are so grounding to us and perhaps get more in touch with the boundaries that are still available to us. And one of those is Shabbat, is marking this time that might feel different. Maybe you're not going to read the news or listen to a briefing. Maybe you're going to disconnect from sources of information just for the day or just for the 24 hours. There are lots of other ways you might observe Shabbat in a way that distinguishes it from the rest of the week. And I think now in this time that is sort of a time outside of time, I encourage us to think about how we do mark time and make these boundaries, which we know are in their very nature holy. To have a sense of boundary and order might enable us, in some ways, might open us rather than restrict us and help us feel closer to the transcendent. So with that, I wish you again a Shabbat Shalom. And of course, I always welcome any comments, any questions. You can write it into the chat or you can email me and I'll look at it after Shabbat. I do miss being able to engage with Torah learning in a more interactive way. But actually, I can use this time to make an announcement, to make a couple of announcements, which is, one announcement is that tomorrow morning, I will be leading an interactive Torah study as part of a Shabbat morning service, and the Shir Chadash community will be joining with us, and it will be over Zoom, and all of the information on how to get onto the service on Zoom is available on our website or on our newsletter, and I will be leading a brief Torah study about this Torah portion, and because it will be on Zoom, we'll have the opportunity to converse a bit more. It won't be quite as frontal, and we'll be able to hear Torah chanted, and we'll have a nice full Shabbat morning service. So I hope that you'll join us if you're able to. I might as well give a couple of other announcements before we wrap up our service. I want you to know that on Monday night, I'll be leading a Yom HaShoah commemoration, Holocaust Remembrance Day observance, with a short service beginning at 7 p.m. We will also have the opportunity in that service to light a yahrzeit candle. The Brotherhood was very generous and sent to all of our members a memorial candle specifically for Yom HaShoah. But if you do not have one or did not receive one, please know, of course, that you can light any candle that you have. If you don't have any kind of yahrzeit memorial candle, please use any candle if you wish to light with us, which we'll do during the service at 7 p.m. on Monday night. After that brief service, we will have an amazing opportunity to hear from and learn from Honey Sachs, who's a member of our community and was a child survivor of the Holocaust. She was born just after the war. Her parents met after the war, but they were all in Bergen-Belsen, a mile from the camp Bergen-Belsen, where they set up a place for survivors to be and to recover, and there her parents met. And she'll tell you all about her memories of being with them there until she was 3, and her family's remarkable story as a way of honoring and remembering the 6 million who were murdered in the Shoah. So all of that is on Zoom. You can get all the information on our website and in our newsletter. Feel free to send an email. I'll look at it after Shabbat if you have any questions about that service and program. Next Friday night, we're going to have a little bit of a change. So it's been a bunch of weeks that I've been leading this service along with my family, and I actually have the opportunity to have Friday night off. We have Rabbi Schaefer, who will be leading next Friday night. Stay tuned for details on that. That will be a lovely service as well. So we're going to conclude with Aleinu, and then Mourner's Kaddish. Then we'll make Kiddush and Motzi, and then we'll close with a closing song. Page 282. Aleinu leshabeach la'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגופי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו At this time we turn to Mourner's Kaddish. going to invite you to type in some names or simply to say some names to yourself. And also I will read some names from the community. This evening, we are remembering Susan Heyman, was the beloved mother of Lee and of Samantha Heyman, and the grandmother of Evelyn and Amelia and Molly. And we are remembering Walter, which I'm sorry that I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Maybe you're typing it in, Gabriella, but the grandfather of Gabriella Spielberg and the great grandfather of Leah. We send our condolences to both of those families. So I'm glad that people are writing in names if you're observing a yard site or in a period of mourning. So we have Kathy Smithberger, Yiso Walter, Carol Cohen. Thank you. So it was Walter Zagarodny, Douglas Reynolds, and all those who are in our hearts, those we've loved and who are no longer with us in this world. We recite Mourner's Kaddish, which is on page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'alma divra chirutei v'amlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol bet Yisrael v'agala v'zman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnasei v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudesha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom v'imromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru. Amen. May the one who makes peace in the heights make peace, bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all who dwell on earth. And let us say, Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru imeru. Amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. We'll make Kiddush and Motzi. Ami, would you like to help with Kiddush and Motzi? Gavi? So Gavi's going to make Kiddush. Oh, that's not Gavi, that's Idan. Do we have Gavi? Gavi is the age of Bar Mitzvah. He is a Jewish adult, so he's able to make Kiddush. All right, so I will make Kiddush, and if you're following along with me, we're on page 5. We would like the words. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'yahava uvratzon inchilanu zikaron le'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila le'mikrahei kodesh zecher letzidat Mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta v'yotanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha yahava uvratzon inchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen.
And we'll close with Olam Chesed Yibanet. We will build a world of Chesed, a line that comes from Psalms set to music by Rabbi Menachem Creditor. Olam Chesed Yibanet. I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, a Shabbat full of blessing and peace and joy and beauty. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a wonderful Shabbat. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Bye.